And we are live. It might be a slow viewer day with where we're at in the season, but let's play the share around music. All right, you ready, buddy?
Sure.
Yeah, we got the intro music for you anyway. 31 seconds for now. Hello, friends, fans, and faithful followers. Welcome to the ABTA Monday Night Live, where we sit at the intersection of tracking and training and bring it to you the only way we know how. No nonsense and no politics. Thank you for the 5 viewers. Right now it's 7:04 p.m. on Monday, June 22nd, the Monday after Father's Day weekend. I hope all of our fathers out there had a great weekend. Mine was worth doing. I know that. Got to spend some time with the grandkids at the ice cream and goat store. You buy ice cream and you go watch the goats while they stand there and watch you eat your ice cream. It was very interesting. So that was fun. So a couple orders of business, I guess, before we dive into the night. No real locked in agenda for tonight. We do want to talk about. I want to recap Michigan real quick. It won't take long. It was pretty small, but it was pretty impactful, I believe. So I want to recap that. I want to, I want to talk about some puppy training. Trials and tribulations. So, listeners, anybody out there who's in the process of training a puppy, man, share your trials and tribulations, because I had my little my little meltdown last night, which was completely emotional. Not 1 ounce of intellectual thought was put into it, but I vented a little bit on Facebook, and it was raw and it was true. That's how I was feeling. But we'll talk about that a little bit. And that spawned my idea. Well, let's just have a show of people talking about their trials and tribulations. And Kenny, I know you've got a story that I think you've told before that falls in line with some of the challenges that I was feeling I was having yesterday. So it'll be good to remind people. That'd be good to remind me of that. And then anything else anybody wants to talk about, we have the comments. We'll just make a whole thing around it. But before we dive into all of that, the first order of business, I guess, is for those who haven't seen, the Tennessee event has been canceled. I'll just say due to compounding local logistical matters that just couldn't be overcome. So that is off. If you were planning to test in Tennessee and you still want to test, give us a shout. We can get you connected with the nearest judge and find a way for you to get tested, unless it was a finished or an elite level test, and those are only good at events. And there is some talk of some maybe local organizations doing some testing type weekend stuff. It'll be relatively impromptu, and we'll share that as people share with us that they want to do something. So that there may be an opportunity in a group setting. But, unfortunately, Tennessee is not going to come together this year. And we look forward to seeing how we can accommodate it next year. So I wanted to put that out there right off the get. So, with Michigan being over, 2 weeks ago or a week ago last weekend, and Tennessee being off the books, that concludes the testing and seminar season that was originally scheduled. So we are all in all systems go in terms of what next year looks like. The board, and we won't get into it right now, but we've had some shuffling of the deck within the board. Always looking to strengthen the organization and making sure we have the right people in the right roles and ensuring that we have all of the right roles. So there's been some good stuff going on there that I think will ultimately lead to overall organizational betterment. So I'm pretty excited about that. And some of that didn't impact me. My role did change. But we're still doing the lives. And we're still doing the things that we do. So, Kenny, anything you want to add or comment on before we kind of start diving into things?
No, not right now. Little bum Tennessee didn't work out, but hopefully we can do something next year.
Yeah.
It wasn't anyone's fault, just venue issues and some other stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is fine.
Yep. And that happens when you plan them as early as we did. I mean, we had that, and that happens. It's unfortunate for sure, but Calvin, yeah. Hey, I'm representing my buddy Calvin in his Scent Hunter tracking hat. And I'm still working on peeling them damn stickers off my car, Calvin. So we'll be talking about that this weekend. But we'll see what we can do next season. I would like to get to Tennessee. It would be a lot of fun. It's a great state. There's a lot of great people in Tennessee. So we'll see what we can bring next year for sure. But and I guess I'll apologize. Last week or last stream, we had to play a rerun. I was in Orlando for a big corporate work gig, and just wasn't practical for me to slip away from the evening events and do a live stream. So we played a rerun, and we're back on schedule now. And I'm hoping, the next stream 2 weeks from today should be a fun conversation. If
Yes.
I say fun, it should be. I don't think fun is the right word in the context of what we're trying to do, and I'm not going to tease it too much in case it can't come together for next week or next stream. But it should be an interesting conversation, and I think people will want to tune in and like to hear what this guest has to say. Most people in the tracking world will be aware of the situation that we're going to talk about, involving an unfortunate episode on a track with a dog. I'll just leave it at that. So if it all comes together, we'll be talking about that. Otherwise, we'll have that guest on when schedules can coordinate. But so tonight I want to talk a little bit about puppy stuff. So I had, we've talked about it 100 times on these streams. A bunch of us got our new pups, and we're starting the training. I was slow rolling it, and then I got all inspired. No, hold on. Let me back up. I want to talk about Michigan first. I'm sorry. I want to talk a little bit about the Michigan workshop, because it kind of plays into the build up to this conversation. So we had the Michigan workshop. It was a small in attendance, but big in impact, as I like to call it. Most of the attendees were very, very green trackers. We had one veteran team there. I'll call them a veteran team, in Charlie and Travis Connor, who also provided lunch. So thank you, Travis and Charlie. It was wonderful. Genuinely appreciate that. Appreciate your contributions overall to the workshop. But other than that, I think the most seasoned tracker from there was maybe 2 years. And Calvin Dennis was there, Michigan judge. Terry Foles was there, Michigan judge, and Tony Hill, Michigan judge applicant, going through the process to become a judge, but longtime houndsman and tracker. He runs bears and cats in northern Michigan, as well as tracks deer. So Tony's a great asset to the Michigan Deer Tracking Network, to the tracking community, and he was a big asset and contributor to the Michigan workshop, as was Calvin and Terry. So, and I was just there smiling and nodding a lot. But it was really good. We turned it into a workshop when the attendance, I don't want to say when the attendance, when it just became eminent that it wasn't going to be as big as it was last year. And that just happens. I mean, I think in general, we're seeing a little bit, in the state of Michigan anyway, we're seeing a little bit of a reduction in attendance in these types of events, regardless of the organization. And I don't think it's necessarily an indictment on either organization or the quality of the events. We were talking about it. Information is everywhere these days. There's YouTube videos galore. There's Facebook posts galore. There's podcasts galore. You got to filter some of that, but it's information. It's out there. So
you got to filter about 99% of it.
You got to filter it, but nonetheless, it's content, right? And people can get information in other ways. So I think that might be a contributor. But nonetheless, there's still a place for in-person events. So we converted it from a seminar type to a workshop type. And I will tell you, I really enjoyed that. It was pretty small, so it could be pretty intimate in terms of the attention and the questions and the flexibility. But it was a lot of fun. The attendees seemed to enjoy it. There was a whole bunch of hands-on. I guess I'll just walk through the format really quickly. Is we started out today, Friday was testing. We didn't have a lot of tests. We had 5 tests, 3 successful um, tests, and 2 were successful in terms of learning and feedback. Just didn't end with a ribbon, and that's okay. But so that was Friday. Then we got into Saturday. We started out today right out of the gate. We went out early Saturday morning and laid lines and in property around around our venue. We laid some lines. We split the attendees up in groups. Calvin and Tony took a group, and Terry and I took a group. And each attendee had their own clean line that they could run their dog on, and they each ran them independently, and the other attendees in each group followed along. So that was a lot of fun. We got to provide some feedback. I mean, they weren't long lines, and they weren't overly challenging lines, but they had, a couple 90-degree turns in them, a couple 100 yards long or something. And we could see the dog work, and we could provide feedback, and then others could see the other dogs work. And, so we split off and did that, and then went back to the hall and talked about the things that we learned there. And the attendees seemed to really enjoy that. And then I'm trying to think what else we did. I typically haven't been a big fan of canine first aid. It's just a personal thing. It's not that I don't think there's value in it. It's just I have a hard time getting fired up about it. But Calvin wanted to do it because he had attended for his work. He attended a class. He's a paramedic, so he gets the opportunity to attend classes for people in that first responders world, which includes law enforcement. And he took a class for canine first aid. And he brought it back, and 2 very practical. We talked about 3 topics in general. 2 of them were very practical. The first we talked about was heat management, and just how important that is. And we talk about that a lot, but we didn't talk a whole lot about it. But we touched on it. But then we got into how to wrap your dog's paw that's cut and bleeding and needs to be cared for in the field. And he walked us through a really cool way to do that. Had all of the supplies there for everybody to actually. He demoed it on himself, or did a demo of it first, and then everybody got to actually do it. So again, a very hands-on experience. And I'm like, dude, this is awesome. So I was really intrigued by that and thought it was really great. So it was very practical. In very, very situations that you could encounter, whether you find a deer or not, stepping on barbed wire, stepping on glass, the hundreds of ways a dog could cut its paw, and it bleeding like crazy. So now I know how to wrap it, and in a very efficient and effective manner, and I will have the supplies with me, which in the past I haven't. The other thing we talked about was bleeding ears, paws and ears. Real common, real practical. So I was really intrigued by that, and I liked that a lot. So that was fun, and again, everybody got to hands-on wrap their dog, or if their dog was a little fussy, they could demo that or practice on a person. Just the principle's the same. And we have some pictures of Frank and Alan practicing on each other. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. What else did we do? We did a Garmin, kind of an in-depth Garmin conversation. And one of the things we did with Garmin, which I really enjoyed. And then we had a little bit of, Calvin and Tony took it a step further, which added a great benefit. It's something that I'd like to add more purposefully. And we had part of the Garmin segment was we had property across the road from the township hall, hiking trails and fields and stuff like that. So property we can use. And I went over and laid a line, just a short one, 400 and some yards, I think. Not difficult, but it wasn't a straight line either. There was a couple of turns in it. And Tony and Calvin, we got somebody to volunteer to have their dog run that line. So Tony and Calvin took Ben and his 2-year-old Catahoula, who passed their finish level test, across the road, while the rest of us stayed back at the township hall underneath the shade tree in the 75-degree weather. It was beautiful. And we all had for those who had our Garmin, we were synced up to the collar. So Calvin did not know where the line was. It was blind to Calvin. It was blind to Ben. And Tony had the line on his Garmin. Actually, he took my Garmin, but nonetheless. And the idea was going to have Ben run his dog on the line, and we were all going to sit back at the hall under the township, under the shade tree, and watch the line on our Garmins and discuss what we think is happening, so people can kind of experience and get a little more in tune with, reading a dog on the Garmin, what we think the dog is doing. And they really seem to enjoy that. Now, the added benefit to that, which was a pretty impromptu, brilliant call by Calvin and Tony, is they got across the road over there, and Calvin says, "Hey, Ben, I'm going to run your dog. You're going to follow me while I run your dog. And Tony's going to provide input and feedback while you watch me handle your dog." So that was pretty neat. So Ben got some benefit because he got to see an experienced handler run the dog on lead, and he got to see it from a different perspective. He got to see that head snap. He got to see the dog from further than 30 feet behind while he has an experienced handler and Tony talking, "Hey, did you see this? Did you see that? Did you?" And Ben really seemed to enjoy that. He said it was a great benefit. So that worked out really well on both accounts. So that's something I want to do more of when it's practical to do that, because I thought it was a big help by all the feedback. So that was fun. We did some, we went out back, we had the hall, we did some scent recognition drills, and then we did, just crossing the line. Everybody's done this. It's been at a lot of workshops, but we had very clean line. Everybody got to intersect a line with their dog, and it was clean. It wasn't contaminated, and they got to see how their dog reacted when it engaged odor. And then we walked from there over into we had four or five, I think, 4 or 5 boxes. They were a little bit bigger, 30 by 30, something like that. And Tony had went out and stomped up a hit site without any hair, just scent, no blood either. I don't think. Maybe he had blood. I don't remember. But anyway, stomped up a hit site in each one of the randomly in one of those boxes. I didn't know where they were. And then we took the handlers over there and said, "Okay, you know what your dog looks like when it hits odor. I hit the deer over there somewhere inside these 4 flags. Go find it." And I didn't know where the hit site was. So they said, "Hey, man, I think it was right here." I went out and flagged it on my Garmin, and came back, and then Tony looked at it, and he went out and showed us everybody, and some were on and some were off. And it was a lot of fun. So again, very hands-on, and we switched. We did arrow reading. Calvin and Tony took the group out and did arrow work. I should have been over there learning from that one, because I can't read an arrow to save my life. But that was a lot of fun, and people seemed to really enjoy it. Frank Rotundi, who name dropping, no name here, but he got to see the arrow reading thing in the weekend before, a couple of weeks before, when Tony and Frank Tony, Frank, Calvin, and a couple others got together for a little training weekend, and it was an impromptu arrow reading session that Calvin did, and Frank liked it so much he called me and asked if we could add it to the Michigan workshop. I says, "Done," and it was pretty popular. It seemed to go over really well. But I can't run that segment because I can't read an arrow to save my life. It's got gut matter on it. I don't know what it is. It's blood. Yeah, I'm being a little facetious. I can tell a little bit more than that, but it was fun. And then just a kick around. So that's my long babbling Michigan workshop. It was a good, fun day. We might have done a couple of other things. It escapes me right now, but that was a workshop, and it was very, again, very hands-on, very engaging, very conversational, very fluid. We were able to shuck and jive and make sure that the attendees got the experience that they wanted and were hoping for. So that was a Michigan event and Michigan workshop. I can't call it an event. It was a workshop, testing and workshop.
Which is an event.
Yeah, it is. It's an event, but it just wasn't a big seminar presentation. Which there's a place for them, I think, if they're done right. But I do feel that there's increasing interest in more of the workshop approach.
Well, let's explain the reason why. The reason why workshops are the way they are and seminars are the way they are.
Yeah.
When
there is a difference.
Where you have a large attendance, large participation, it takes a large amount of people to do more hands-on, one-on-one stuff. And anytime you have more people that needs to quote unquote staff these events, there's a large amount of cost.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for example, Kenny, it would have been logistically difficult, and it would have been perhaps cost prohibitive for what you described to take the Pennsylvania event, which was by all accounts a tremendous success with attendees and everything, and turn that into a workshop. There had to be a lot of thought and plan, because that doesn't mean that there's no value in a seminar. That is not what I'm getting at. But it does, when the more people that are there, it becomes logistically challenging to have a workshop feel to it, or you can have elements of it. So I'm not finding fault in either.
No, I just wanted to explain the reason why.
Absolutely.
The reason why typically seminars are the way they are is because we try to maximize the amount that we give to the attendees while minimizing the expenses to minimize the cost on their end.
Yeah, that's right. Because it is an expense to put these things on, and we want to defray that through registration fees and stuff, and we want to keep the attendance cost within reach for most people. For everybody is really what we want to do.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what event it is, who's putting it on, what organization, what person. None of these events are designed for you to go there and your dog be trained.
Oh heavens, no! No, that's impossible.
You were going there to take stuff home for you to be able to work with your dog.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Learn some things, learn a little bit about your dog, then go home and apply what you learn to your own training practice. For sure. No, I agree with that. Craig, as a new tracker, the hands-on was very helpful and informative. Well, thanks, Craig. And we're going to, so probably a good segue now to talk about the puppy training, because Craig Reeder and Harper are a huge part of my over motivation to get working with Rizzo, and it again, it was completely emotional, and intellectually I know far better than what my emotion said. But so Craig and Harper, 6-month-old Harper, Ladner Blackmouth Cur, Rizzo's littermate, took a started level test and did extremely well, and they passed. And that I was literally pretty dang impressed. Was I surprised? No, because I'd heard so much about the capabilities of the Ladners, and I had So I wasn't surprised, but I was impressed. That little runt handled that like a champ. So it got me fired up. So I went out and said, "Okay, Harper's." And Craig has been working with her too. I will admit, Craig had been working with her and had her ready. And haven't been working with Rizzo all that much. I think yesterday was our 11th line. And there's been some improvement. Don't misunderstand me. But so I have this all kinds of excitement and giddiness after watching Harper. And oh, by the way, there was another Ladner crew there, older dog, 3-year-old Oakley, who also did extremely well on a starter level test. So I'm all excited about this, and Rizzo, she didn't smoke the line like Harper did. I mean, she could if she wanted to, zero question about it. She has demonstrated a great ability to follow the line, no problem. But she hasn't matured to the point yet to where it's of great interest to her. She'll be interested for 30 or so yards. Michael Flood, I see you're watching. This will be interesting to you. For 30 or so yards, stop, turn around, come back to me. Oh, look at the butterfly. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at this cross trail. This smells good. And then I'd say, come on, and then she'd go for a little bit. And I was she didn't burn it down like Harper did. And I'm like all kinds of frustrated because all I'm seeing is Harper in my mind. So I make this, really pretty stupid post venting my frustrations. And there were other things I was frustrated about throughout the day. So that's how I ended the day. Even though it was Father's Day, I had a couple of things that built up some frustration. So I'm like, oh, geez. I mean, intellectually, I know she is going to be perfectly fine when she's ready. And, there are a whole lot of other elements that we can work on that apply to tracking, such as recall to tone, standard obedience, exposure
which should be done before you even put them on a line.
And we were working on all of that. Yeah, we were doing it simultaneously, I guess.
Exactly. That's my point.
But we done more of the other than lines. But I'm not worried about it. I want to be perfectly clear because I had a lot of people chime in, and I appreciate the support, reminding me to be patient. And yes, and patience is not my virtue in many ways. Some things I can be incredibly patient on, but sometimes I can be also very hypocritical in my patience and tell everybody else they need to be patient while I'm becoming frustrated about the stuff that I'm telling them to be patient about. But all in all, I know that she's going to be fine. I am not the least bit concerned. It's going to be fine. But Kenny, you commented on that post. It says, "Hey, I got a story sometime that I'll tell you, and I know you've told it before, but for those who are training puppies that may not have heard it, and the 22 live followers, why don't you share that with us, buddy? And then whatever other comments you would have on the puppy training. Now, I want to clarify. She has shown, man, when she wants to, she will smoke it, and she absolutely has all of the tools and capabilities to do it. And that is the motivating part to me. And when she's overrun a turn, she stopped and got like, okay, wait a minute, come back. So it's just, I'm used to my 5-year-old bloodhound just smoking it, and it's been a long time since I've had a puppy. So go ahead, Kenny.
So my very first Ladner cur, I did exactly what you're doing, what I tell everyone not to do. Of course, back then I didn't say that as often. But by 4 months old, she was smoking 24, 30-hour-old trails, half-mile long, anything I threw at her. And, I mean, it was fast. It was 3 weeks of training she was doing it. I still have videos of my phone.
Yeah.
And she just shut down on me. Would not track. She would go 30 yards and just want to chase a squirrel, a butterfly. Like she just wasn't into it. And I made up my mind I was going to get rid of her. And I've had a lot of dogs, and to this day, she's still the best one I ever had. And I almost got rid of her. Now, on the flip side, and like I said, sounds like a lot of like Craig's dog, just smoking it. She could have passed a started and season test at 4 months old. But
I think Harper could pass or at least give a season test a good run. But anyway.
But then at 4.5 months old, if I didn't, honestly, you probably could have came to my house and got her for free 2 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she just shut down, and I got super frustrated, and I was going to get rid of her. I mean, I made up my mind, and then I ran her over with a truck twice. Not intentionally.
I say, what the heck, Kenny?
So
yeah, okay.
I went to move the truck, or not. We came home, and she ran in front of my tire. I ran her over, and I panicked, and I backed back over.
Oh, no.
We immediately rushed her to the vet, and they had her back there doing x-rays. And my wife says, if she makes it through this, you have to give her a chance.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm done. I said, she just doesn't have it. And then my wife, sitting there harping on me, well, she had it 2 weeks ago. If she makes it through this, you're going to give her a chance. And I told her I would, and she ended up being the best dog I ever had. But
so what do you attribute the shutdown period to?
Overtraining. Too young.
Overtraining too. How often were you training her?
I wouldn't say I was training her too often. Just.
But for the age, it might have been a little.
Yeah, 2 to 3 days a week is all I was doing. But I was pushing her too hard. Okay. And then I didn't push her hard enough. So it was a combination. She got to that point. I was like, okay, I'm not going anymore. So I got repetitive. I just kept doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I pushed her super hard early, and then I didn't push her hard enough.
Yeah.
And then I went backwards, and she was just forward with it.
Yeah.
So I ran her over. She made it through, and I had a bloodhound at the time.
Yeah.
And he ended up with some health issues, and he couldn't track that season. And I know I've shared this many times. Some of y'all, but I'm sharing it with you, Matt. I don't know how, and I'm sure you've heard it, but
yeah.
She, on the first 38 tracks, 38 recoveries, I think it was that year, she worked with my bloodhound. After that, she found 108 deer by herself. And she started the season at 5 months old, 5.5 months old.
I was just going to ask, 5.5 months old, and she ended with over 100 recoveries that season?
108 deer on the tailgate that season. And I was going to get rid of her.
Yeah, that's... And
I have 108 pictures of the deer that these are, it's legitimate.
No, yeah, I don't challenge that a bit. I mean, I absolutely believe it. And, it certainly is inspiring to me. And again, like I say, intellectually, I know, but man, it's just nice to hear the stories and the confirmation. I'm getting a lot of people who I trust and have experience with the Ladner saying, dude, it's okay, man. Just hold on.
My best dog in my yard right now is a Ladner cur, and she wasn't worth feeding for her first year and a half.
Yeah.
As far as I'm using a figurative.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
She was horrible, absolutely horrible. She didn't want to take a mock track. I mean, but I seen it in her. I knew she had it, and I was patient. Now
Yeah.
she's my most reliable dog in the yard.
Yeah. And that's really, like I said, the approach I'm going to take. I'm going to take a step back. I got extra inspired and motivated watching Harper, watching Trevor's 3-year-old Ladner, hearing all of the legend of Ladner is echoes in my head every day. So I know it's there, and intellectually I know it's there. So I've decided after I calmed down from my little poutiness yesterday afternoon and my grumpy day, I'm like, look, I don't need her to be able to do anything trailing deer this fall. I mean, I want to get her on deer, but I don't need her to necessarily, I don't have to count on her right now unless we have an episode with Brew, which she goes down. But I've got a pretty proven dog that's pretty solid. So I'm just going to back off. I'm just going to continue the stuff that I can do, because I will not do a trail in my backyard. I always go somewhere else. I'm just going to back off. I'm going to continue her exposure because she's very distracted by things, very motion activated, very hot
Not
stuff.
ready.
Just not ready. Yeah, that I mean, in this is a far different. And so this is a learning thing for me too. This is far different, than my bloodhound. I mean, bloodhounds, they're just wired to, ooh, there's a scent. Let me see where it goes with their nose on the ground. That's what they do. Brew was reasonably easy to train. And I know what I was doing back then. I was doing drags. I was doing all kinds of stuff. And I'm not doing that with Rizzo. I'm using, hooves. I am putting just a little bit of blood diluted with distilled water. So, I don't have any idea what the concentration is, but it's not much. So I am doing that just because I am. And I don't even know what the hell I was going to say. But, it's just far different. Just far different, than it was with Brew. And I'm okay with that because I see those just micro glimpses of, holy shit, that was cool. And when that all comes together, I'm seeing the things that you have talked about and many others that I have talked about this breed and this line in their trailing tendencies. And I'm seeing little elements of that. And the other thing that I'm seeing is just now she's only 6 months old and 35 pounds or whatever she is. I haven't weighed her in quite a while. But my God, the athleticism, just the physical fitness of that little snot, and just the endurance is insane. Some of it's puppy, I get it, but I don't expect that to change a whole lot when she's matured. When we were down there at Tanya's, when we were all there, I'm looking at her Uncle Tramp and all. I'm like, my goodness, they're just fine, fit looking, sleek machines. And Brew's not.
Dixie's, I'd have to ask Brandy. I don't know, 6, 7. And I mean, when she's in the woods, you would think she was a year-old pup.
Yeah.
I will say this about Ladners. They are super smart dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, when they get it, like Xena did, Sam, same way, when they get it, and they realize that I'm just done with this. I'm done. I'm ready for the real thing. And when they do, I mean, it will frustrate you because you want them to perform, when you lay a trail.
On a mock track, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you want them to perform, and they're just like, I'm over this. I'm ready to hunt. Let's go. And then you go put them in the woods when season comes and
get out of the way, huh?
Oh yeah, yep.
I'm really stoked about it. I'm hoping. I got a friend of mine that I've tracked for him a couple times, south of me a little bit, and found a couple of deer for him. And just a great family, great guy. Really enjoy him. They have crop. They're doing crop damage stuff. I says, Tim, I says, man, if you get one that runs off, I said, give me a call. I'd love to put my pup on it if it worked out. If I can, I'd love to see her on a real deer. But well, it'll come. I mean, it'll come soon.
But there's a reason, as a trainer, as someone who offers training to the public,
Mm-hmm.
do not take dogs until at least 6 months old.
Do not say it again. Do not do what?
We do not accept dogs in our training program until they're 6 months old.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me. I mean we've talked about it in several, live streams, and I think one of the more recent ones, that there will be a switch, and the dog will tell you when they're ready, and that's kind of where I was going when I was doing the comparison with Baru. She just, I don't know, she always followed. Whenever I had put something down, she always followed it. I was like, okay, this is easy. Well, she was just ready. Rizzo, a little different. you know, um, and that's becoming very evident to me and very real. And I think it's good. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love it if she was burning down every line. Who wouldn't? You know, I think having this exposure to a different breed and having this, I'm not even going to call it a problem, but having going through this process, ultimately, I think it's going to make me a better handler, just because I'm getting exposure to different styles and having to, employ my patience and talk myself away from the edge and talk to people like you and others, helping remind me that it is a process. And like I said, there's a lot of comments on my Facebook post that, man, it's a process. Hang in there. It's gonna patience. All of the things that, like I said, I intellectually know, but it's just nice to have that support. And I think it's going to make me better, because now when I get my third dog, I'm like, okay, yep, stark difference between Baru and Rizzo. What's this one going to be? It's going to be one or the other, somewhere in between. So,
well, Craig had experience. I have a dog in my yard from Craig. The Draughtar.
Yeah.
And Craig struggled with it. And
yeah, he talked about that. Yep.
Yeah, and Craig's killing it with his Latin. You're used to that bloodhound style.
100%.
And I think that once you see that Ladner kick in, you'll understand there's a lot more similarities than you think. Just with a lot higher drive and higher want to.
And a higher gear, I think.
Yeah. And
yeah, I can already see that.
Now with Craig, it was the opposite. I think what he was dealing with was an unreal amount of drive. Because Scout is just, he is super next level. I've never had a dog with the amount of drive that dog has. And so Craig gets a Ladder pup that's a little more chill. And it fits him.
Mm-hmm.
You're dealing with a dog that has more, I guess you'd say, hyperactiveness than you're used to.
Yeah, very, exactly. Yep.
So, and as trainers, like John and I, as trainers, and Brandy when she did it, this is stuff we have to be able to train every breed and every personality, because every dog has a different personality. So there's different approaches for everything. So, but what we have learned over the years, and it's not just me, it's, Ethan Young, Dean, Randy Duvall, a lot of the reputable trainers out there, most of them will not take a dog for board and train, actual tracking training until they're at least 6 months old.
Yeah.
And the reason is the majority of dogs are not ready for the intense training before that.
I can see that. I can see that. I think uh, with Rizzo, I was doing about one line a weekend. One line a week, and not terribly long, a couple 100 yards. A couple 90s. I think the longest one we tried was about 400. And it took her a while. She picked her way through it, but I don't think I could do. I certainly wouldn't want to do any more than one a week with her, and to the point where I'm not going to do any with her for a while. I'll give it 2-3 weeks, a month or so. I'll put one down, just see how she interacts with it. She takes it fine. If she doesn't, that's okay too. In fact, I may just lay a line out and then just take her for a walk without just her collar on, and see if she naturally engages with it and what she does there. I won't even put her on it. I'll just let her see if she discovers it herself and what she does. And if she takes it and shows interest, well, that'll be a hint for me that we can resume some trailing training. But meanwhile, we're just going to continue to just take wood walks with no lines, get her exposed to all of the noises and sounds and smells in the woods, continue to work on tone training here in the yard, because we can do that in the yard. Excuse me, and the standard obedience stuff. That's all relevant to tracking. We're still doing tracking training. We're just not doing trailing training.
And that's where a lot of people make mistakes, is they focus on the trailing aspect, and the trailing aspect is one of the, my opinion, one of the easiest, and also probably not very high on the priority list compared to some of the other stuff.
Now, I would tell you, my line of thinking on that has completely changed to that approach.
They think with their nose. They're born to smell. They're
right.
wired to smell. That's how they think. That's how they process. We're channeling that.
Yep.
But if you don't get a grasp on that dog from an obedience perspective, and I'm not talking about heel, fancy heel.
Oh yeah. No.
I'm not. All of those things, yes, that we classify them as obedience, but in reality, it's the dog is listening to you.
Yeah, doing what you tell it. Yeah, I kind of
what you're doing is channeling the focus of that dog. The end result is really not. Some people's gonna take this wrong, I'm sure, because I'm probably not going to word it right. The end result is really not the critical part. Them sitting is not really the critical part. It's getting them to focus is the critical part. Because if you can get them to focus and sit and stay, you can get them to focus on a trail and follow that trail.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. And, that was, I don't know if I'll call it a mistake, but maybe the short-sightedness of when I was training Baru. I will tell you, the obedience side and all of that stuff, I've talked to Courtney and others. That is my weakest piece of the whole thing. I'm terrible at it. I'm not. I don't know how to do it for sure. I mean, I know how to do it, but it's just not what I do. So I struggle with it a little bit, and so I've never really focused on it. Now, that's changing with Rizzo and what I've learned through you guys and others, that it is important to have a more rounded dog. And Brew does fine. Don't get me wrong, and she's really gotten way better since she's been older. Since she's gonna be 5 in August, so she's not that old. But she listens pretty well. But she's not. We talked about it before. I don't know if this is a thing or not, but I call it feel obedience and then show obedience. I don't give a crap if my dog. I don't want my wife would beg to differ, but I don't want my trailing dogs to walk at a heel. I don't care if at the end of the lead, I don't necessarily want to pull my arm off, but I don't care if at the end of the lead. I want them to come. I want them to sit. It's really about all I care about. We've talked about that 100 times too.
My tracking dogs, that's all that I do.
Yeah.
Now Craig did a lot more with Scout. Craig and Tony did a lot more training with Scout, and he's super obedient. You know, he'll heel, he'll downstay, all that.
Yeah, and I would like downstay, but yeah. But I don't know if I got any.
Pretty much all I do is I want them to sit when I tell them to sit. I want them to come here when I tell them to come here.
You got it.
You know, everything else is fine. But at the end of the day, if they'll do those two things, you've got to handle them.
Yeah, I got to read Michael Pitts Jr.'s comment here, Kenny, because it's too perfect. Michael says, let me just pop it up there. Michael says, I have a Weatherford cur and a bloodhound, and my bloodhound was like you said, Matt. I thought I was talking to myself when you were explaining, but my cur had a lot more distractions across the lines, hogs, deer, etc., and he would freak out where the bloodhound would when he was a puppy, but not as bad as the cur. The cur is a ball of fire, and the bloodhound is very slow iceberg. Yeah, I mean, Brew doesn't freak out anything in the woods, and I don't remember her ever. Rizzo's, boy, she's on top of everything. But so it's just something I got to get used to and understand, and know that she's gonna live up to the Ladner legend. I have every belief in that. So thanks for sharing that, Michael.
And honestly, she's probably further along than you realize.
Maybe
you need to push her harder.
Well, I don't know. My instinct says no because I don't know. We'll see. I don't think there's harm in not doing anything with her for a while in terms of trailing for a while. But I will tell you, man, like I said, when she says, okay, I'm going to follow this line, it's like, bam, boom, 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 boom. And I see that Ladner speed, that cur speed you talk about, and I see that determination. So I said, okay, I'm going to come back to you and hang out for a few minutes, Dad. I'm like, what is this? Oh, wait, there's a butterfly. Oh, look, I think a deer crossed here an hour ago. Oh, my goodness, was that a rabbit? All of those things, Wait, what was that noise? And she's all freaked out. I'm like, oh, my goodness gracious. So I still get super excited.
That's where a downstay comes into play.
Exactly. Just lower that arousal state and let them focus on the line.
Yeah, I know I've shared this story before, but we went and tested in North Georgia with a dog. It was a tackle, and the test was at night through a creek that was just slap full of raccoons.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And that dog got super, super crittery.
Oh, man.
And I mean, if I wouldn't have grabbed that dog, and it wasn't trained on downstay, but basically put it in a downstay and force it to. I physically held that dog and petted that dog until I seen that calm down. I felt the heart rate come down. Once that happened, I reset the dog. We finished the line out and we passed the test. If I wouldn't have done that, I'd have never passed.
Yeah. Oh, I've done that in the field.
Sometimes they get distracted with the butterflies, the squirrels, or any of that. Sometimes just take them and just sit down, pet them. I do that on track sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
John was on here. He'd tell you sometimes we'll be tracking and my dog will get a little amped up, and I'll just sit down next to a tree in the shade, make my dog come over there, and I'll just sit down there and pet it. And then once she kind of melts in my lap, all right, let's go.
Yep, I've done a version of that in the field too. Yeah, and it's effective. You got to get them calmed down, and for sure. Let's because this is listener fed. Let's grab Shane Cootie. I got a Boykin pup. She's 10 weeks old. When is a good age to start working her, and how much am I looking at to have her trained to track deer? She would only track for me and a buddy or two, nothing extreme, just have her trained enough to track 3 to 5 deer a season.
So the amount of training, whether you're tracking 300 deer or 3 to 5 deer, is still the same.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, if she could track 3 to 5, she could track 300. Yeah.
So we have trained a lot of Boykins, especially
Have you really?
the last 3 years. Boykins in the tracking world has increased.
Hmm.
I want to say in the last year, I'd have to double check. But
You know why?
why is that?
There's a certain popular person on Facebook that got one, and YouTube. Shane.
Well,
I don't know if that's why or not, but he's pretty influential. But go ahead.
so here it's because there's a lot of them because of the bird dog world.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of plantations here. So that's why there's a lot of Boykins and Cocker Spaniels is another one that we've trained a lot of here in the last couple of years. Boykins are very, very good at tracking. They're probably a sleeper dog when it comes to tracking. But I will say this: I wouldn't even put her on a trail until at least 6 months old. Especially at Boykin, they are jacked. They're hyper. Just at 10 weeks old, just right now is the time to start with sit. Right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And start with your obedience. Another couple of weeks, you start with here. Come here. Start it early. You can't get on that stuff soon enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think, Kenny, I think we sort of answered that question just based on my ramblings and just talking about my strife or my path and process with Rizzo. I think we covered a lot of that. So Shane, I would, and I would tell you this too, buddy. If you want that Boykin pup to be as good as she can be, and I know you're just looking to track for a buddy or two, well, how many tracks do a buddy or two really, really need in the season? You'll limit the dog's development by limiting her exposure to live tracks. I'd encourage you to get her on as many as you can when you're ready. So,
that'll happen.
And that'll happen. But he said he just wants to track 3 to 5 deer a season. So, I wouldn't limit yourself to that. If you're doing it because you enjoy tracking, enjoy watching the dog work.
Now we'll get to that other part of his question about having her trained. And I know this comes up a lot, especially on social media. People say, "Oh, train it yourself." That's not always the right answer. And I'm not saying that because I offer training. It's the reality. If you've never had a tracking dog, you are better off, especially if you're only planning on tracking 3 to 5 deer a season. You are better off having someone else train your first dog if you have no experience, because you are going to make critical mistakes that are going to be hard to overcome. And what a trainer can do in 6 to 8 weeks will take you 6 to 8 months.
Yeah. Well, I would.
I'm not. You'll. People with multiple dogs will understand where I'm coming from, because you make a lot of mistakes on your first dog that you don't on your second, third, fourth dog.
100%.
There's value in having, especially your first dog, there is value in having that first dog trained.
Yeah. But I would tell you, if
you have a buddy that you can track with that has the experience and you can train with, that's a different story.
Yeah. There you go. You got a tracking mentor or something like that. Yeah, for sure. Yep, someone to help you with the training, for sure.
But even then, part of the problem is you don't have the experience to filter what's good and bad.
Yeah.
So you start, you get someone like you're in the right spot asking these questions, Shane, and trust me, I will help you. Even if I, didn't train a dog for you, I'd help you. I'd tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
I'll give you a guide. I mean, Craig will tell you I sent him a guide.
Shane, comment what state you're in, buddy. If you're still listening, comment what state you're in.
In the I forgot where I was going on, but the problem is you just don't know what you're doing, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
And you get online and you look at some of this advice and some of these products that people make up for training aids, and you can get yourself in a jam quick, and you can have a dog that may be one of the best out there and turn it into a lap dog. So at a minimum, find a good mentor.
Yeah.
But as far as how much are you looking at, it depends on what trainer you go with. Most, I mean, honestly, there's only a handful that I'd even recommend in the whole nation. You're looking at least a couple $1,000. But even then, you factor in time. I tell everyone, you have to be a trainer for what we do. You have to love it, because the time, money, value part is not there.
Yeah. Yep. Well, Shane, I hope that was helpful, man. Like I say, the questions don't have to stop when this live stream's over. You got resources here. We can, if you don't know anybody near you, we probably, between the members here, will know somebody that's something close to you. But we'll see. Back to the Michigan workshop, Michael Flood, who is an ABTA in the ABTA mentorship program, and he's not far from me, so I'm assigned his mentor. Michael came in a few weeks ago, and I laid a line for him out there, out back with his 7-month-old Bavarian Gibby, and he was at the workshop. He says the day was super beneficial. Gibby and I learned so much. Well, thank you, Michael, and glad you got something from it. Colby Garnett. I got my name on one in the oven now. Pup will be in the woods this year with my older dogs learning woods things. There you go, buddy. That's where I'm at with Rizzo. We're learning woods things, and we're going to learn a lot more woods things. Dale. Ron Richter says he's got a Bavarian pup too, Smokey. He's in our network. I'm still working on mine, not eating the couch. Yeah. So am I.
Bavarian, they're a handful.
Well, so are these ladders, slippers, and shoes.
Oh no, Bavarians are a whole nother level.
Are they really? Hold on a second. I gotta let my dog in. She's been knocking. Come on, baby. Oh, hi, Riz. Yeah, it's gonna get interesting now. I got a bloodhound and a 6-month-old cur pup in here.
No, I've got a really, really good Bavarian, but I've had 4 now, and this one's she's chill, and pretty easy to train. We've trained a lot of them. Terry Wade, I think, said it best. your average Bavarian, now your average,
Yep.
grows a leg a year, and by 4 years old, you might have a dog.
Yeah, full complete dog. I've heard that before. Yeah. Now my buddy Terry Foltz, he got Bavarian and we talk Terry and I talk all the time. In fact, Terry, if you're listening, I'm sorry you called me this morning or messaged me and I didn't get back to you. I apologize. But he says he didn't have any problem with River and the chewing and stuff. She's been pretty good. So but yeah. Craig talking about Scout. I've got Scout's sister right now and struggle with her also. I'll follow Harper any day over that drought. For now, at least. Not giving up on her.
And see, with me, I think this is why Scout did so well with me, is I like that high energy, high drive dog.
Well, and you're in a little bit different situation too, because Craig's got to do it all on lead.
Yeah, but I ran probably 15, 20 tracks on lead with him this year.
Did you?
Or last year. Oh, yeah. Yep. Cool. Actually, he's a lot easier to handle on lead.
All right, man. I'm going to have to do something about that damn dog. Look him back there. Hold on, Kenny. Take it away.
That's a ladder for you.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
All right, so I can't scroll to look at the comments. So Matt will be back in a minute. So Wesley Bivens says, maybe a bit off topic, but is there any way to encourage my 1.5-year-old Dotson to track faster? I trust him to follow the line, but he seems to stall, checking himself more than necessary. Honestly, not. I don't know a way to make him track faster. I've never tried to make a dog faster. I've always tried to make him slow down.
I'm sorry, guys.
I was reading Wesley Bivens' comment, that last one that came in.
Okay.
He said maybe a bit off topic, but is there any way to encourage my 1.5-year-old Dotson to track faster? I trust him to follow line, but he seems to stall, checking himself more than necessary. And that's something I've never really dealt with. Honestly, don't take this the wrong way, but a dog like that's not for me, so that's not one that I would personally keep in my arsenal. I would find someone with a little slower pace to track with a dog like that. Because honestly, most of the time that's just how they are. That's their personality. That's my bloodhound. He was too slow for me. He was good. Don't get me wrong. He was accurate. Just I like a faster paced dog.
Yeah. We had this conversation. I'm trying to remember who recently. Someone was wondering how they can make their dog speed up a little bit.
I will say this. A lot of times when you see that, it could be lack of confidence.
What about
and if it's a lack of confidence in themselves, you can work through that.
Yeah. What if you run them on really hot lines for a while? I wonder what that would do.
We have done that with some to build confidence.
Yeah,
and that's why I said that's where I was going with that. And that's probably what you're dealing with is a confidence issue.
Try it, Wesley. I'd be curious. You talk about bloodhounds, and I've judged a few now, And you always pick on about how damn slow bloodhounds are, and I'm like, what in the hell are you talking about? Because to me, Brew's got a very comfortable pace. If she likes the line and it's a good line, she's got this nice little trot. She's usually 50 to 70 yards ahead of me, depending on the situation. And it's a nice pace for me. I don't consider it slow at all. But then I have friends that have follow them like, oh my goodness, yes, that is just the old man going for a stroll, man. And again, I don't have any fault with it at all. It's just plan accordingly. It's going to take you a little bit longer to get through a track, but
so I've actually seen Wesley's dog in person.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of zoned out there for a minute. I was on the boat all morning. It was hot. So I'm still kind of out of it. That's why it took me a minute to say confidence. But honestly, with Wesley, with your dog, I'm not so sure that's a confidence issue as it is motivation. I would just keep working the dog. It's going to come around. It's a 1.5 years old.
Yeah.
Just keep working the dog.
Yep. Mike Padden, I'm finding it difficult doing mock tracks with the puppy right now with the heat. What effect do you think 100-degree heat has on a puppy with age tracks? Oh, I have an opinion on that, but I don't.
I can tell you exactly what it does.
Yeah, you live it, so I'm all ears.
Whatever age that you're running now in 100-degree temperatures, you can double that when it cools off.
Age. Yeah.
So if you can run a 8-hour track now, it's like running a 16-hour track in 30-degree temps.
Yeah. Yeah. What I think about there, and again, I'm not in the chronic heat like you guys are. It got all the way up to 75 degrees today with a very pleasant 10-mile-an-hour breeze. It was miserable. It was pleasant as hell, actually.
Yeah,
but
196.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think about the negative exposure, depending on how old the puppy is and what kind of exposure it's already had to trailing and stuff. But I think about it as if in maybe breed too. But if all of a sudden the dog's early exposure to trailing is miserable heat, I can't imagine that would be too fun for them in creating this early impression of doing some, trailing is something they don't really care for. I don't know if there's anything to that or not, but that's where my head goes. But in terms of what heat does to a line, and sunlight certainly is very bad for a line, deteriorating the odor. But I don't know.
Well, I don't worry about age as much as I do the challenges.
Yeah.
People get fixated on age and distance. If your dog will track a 2-hour-old line, your dog will track a 10-hour-old line.
Yeah, I agree with that in general. I do think it's good to test that.
Oh, I'm not saying don't test it, but that's not something I get overly concerned about.
I got you. Yep.
I think the biggest mistake in the training world is focusing on distance and age all the time. And we've had this conversation a lot.
Yeah, we have. We've talked about it quite a bit.
You get more out of your dog by isolating the challenges. We don't ask. You talk to anyone who trains obedience. You do not in one session expect that dog to sit, stay, heel, downstay, and come to you all within the same training session.
Yeah. Yeah.
You try to do that, what happens to your dog?
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
Where if you teach it sit, stay, then you teach it down. Well, now you teach it down and stay, and you put the two together, it goes a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, that incremental steps. I mean, just like coaching football, you don't teach the play, you teach the skill for them to that they need to employ to run the play. So it's very similar that way. That being said, though, I do think once all of that starts to come together, there is benefit in running that 1,000-yard line. I'm not saying that you got to laden it with multiple challenges either, but I want to know, is my dog going to have the stick to itiveness to get through that 1,000-yard line? Can they? Yeah, they're capable, but do they want to? Again, I don't think that you need to run 1,000-yard lines on every training session at all.
No, but that's what the general public.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
That's the.
That's what I call the echo chamber wisdom.
Yep.
We think that because somebody else says that and posts an overlay. So yeah, I agree with you that if we go back to a lot of the things that we've talked about in the line that I'm stealing from you and I use all the time now is solving the track. That comes from problem solving opportunities, not big, long, lengthy lines. The problem solving can be done in a much more condensed setting. And then they can employ that on longer tracks as needed, but you don't need a long track to develop the problem solving skills that separates a dog that can follow mediocre scent trail to a dog that can put the puzzle together and find the difficult deer.
Yeah. And again, before any dog goes home from here, they're going to be worked on a half-mile long trip.
Sure.
Aged at least 24 hours old or more.
Yep.
But that's not the bulk of our training.
Right.
The bulk of our training is isolated challenges.
Yep.
Just like any sport out there. You talk about football, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you have a lineman just get into position and step up ready to block?
Right.
How many times do you go through that before you actually put them out there and going through the motions? It's an exercise.
100% it is. I mean, I would break it down into one-step drills.
Yep.
Just in not even in a full stance. You're one step, a 6-inch step. Do that 10,000 times, and then when you're done, do it 1,000 more times, and then we'll add the second one. Now, I'm being a little bit facetious in my numbering, but that's exactly how I would teach things.
It becomes second nature, muscle memory.
Yeah. Yep.
And you get it down, and you don't even realize you're doing it anymore.
Yep. Yep, for sure.
And it's the same thing when training your dog. If you go out there and say, hey, today we're working on 90-degree turns, and you instead of laying a 400-yard trail, you take that same 400 yards and you put 4 90s, separate lines, individual lines. You go 50 yards, 90-degree turn, 50 yards, 90-degree left-hand turn, 50 yards, you end it. You go to the next one, you go 50 yards, 90-degree turn to the right, you end it. And you do 4 of those, you're going to have more. It's going to be more value and quicker than you going out there just running a 400-yard trail with 290s in it.
Yep. When it comes to that skill development. Yep. Let's get Mike's again. One of my first dog tracks.
Mock tracks.
One of my first dog mock tracks were 250 to 350 yards at puppy stage, but had more turns, terrain changes, animal distractions, and unseen challenges given the long wait times. 100%.
But here's the other side that people doesn't realize. You start putting a lot of challenges into a line like that. I'm not saying you, Mike, so don't take this personal. But the average person, if they start putting a lot of challenges into, say, a 400-yard line, your dog, their noses are a lot stronger than we give them credit for sometimes. And they can pick up scent and bypass those challenges, and you not even realize that that's something that they would struggle with, but they were able to pick something up further down the line and not have to work through that challenge. And that's why isolation drills are key.
Yeah. Well, I've seen that, and in Baru, I lay this scent puzzle, and wasn't overly thoughtful about how I constructed that puzzle, and she cut 2/3 of it out, found the exit, and off she went. Which is great in the real world, but she didn't work that entire puzzle like I had envisioned in my head. And some of that was just because of the way I set up the exit. It set her up to find it quicker than I thought maybe she would. Yeah, it's all a lot of it's in the setup too. But yeah, you're right. Like I said, in the real world, I don't care. I want her to cut out as much of those scent puzzles as possible. Save that energy, save that fatigue, and get to the end.
But in training, they need to know how to do it. So if
exactly, and that's exactly where I was going. But in training, you want to see them work through that. You want to see them have those challenges. I was talking with somebody this weekend about overlays and practice lines and things, and talking about in talking about my redefining success in good ugly versus bad ugly and all of that. And although I like seeing bowls of spaghetti in areas of a challenge because it means the dog is working, but I also want to see some semblance of order in tracking progression. I want to see the bowl of spaghetti where it's supposed to be and where at the point of the challenge, and not necessarily. And if it's ugly other places for whatever reason, I still want to see, a tight ugliness in terms of the source, and I want to see a form of directional or some form of organization, I guess, for lack of a better word, in terms of what the track line looks like or the overlay looks like. So I want to see it ugly where it's designed to be ugly and make that dog engage in problem solving. But I also want to see elements of organization and efficiency in areas where there aren't any real particular challenges laid out. So, well, I've got to switch hats here. So Calvin gave me scent hunter tracking at the event, and my buddy Frank, we talked about Frank, gave me his good sense deer tracking. So now I'm going to represent Frank in good sense now. There, Calvin. Frank, if you're listening, here you go, buddy. Thank you for the hat. So what else, Kenny? I don't have anything really particular. I think we grabbed a lot of the comments. Vicky Church early on says, time for the hooves and shoes and dogs to get out in the woods. Yes, it is, Vicky. And here we are. Well, let's just talk about this for a minute. You guys down there in the land of Dixie, You have a freaking season starting next month, right? Way
Yes.
down south, Miami, Miami
Yes.
area. So here we are. A lot of us up here in the Great White North are just now really starting to ramp up our training and things like that, starting to think about it. And you guys are leading into a tracking season starting in July. So,
Yeah. So mainly August 1st. There is some properties that start the week before. But
okay.
no one really does that.
Okay, maybe it was August. I was thinking it was July last year.
Well, it depends on how it falls.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because it always starts on Saturday.
Oh, okay. I got you. I got you.
So there's some private lands that have some different regulations. They start the weekend before.
Oh yeah, Michael Pitts just said that somewhere the weekend before. Michael August 1st, somewhere the weekend before. Okay, yep. Um, we'll read Mike Patton's challenge or comment again, but my point is, or where I was kind of starting to go is, we think it's early because we're still in June. But if you really peel it back and you start looking at, let's say you're kind of a one track a week guy like me, um, and since I'm going to back off on Rizzo and start focusing on Brew a little bit, and she's 5, so and fairly solid, so I don't have to do as much with her. But we still want to get out because she likes it. I want to keep her sharp. I want to keep me sharp, and I like doing it. But if you think about, if you're one of these one track a week guys, based on that's just how you have to do it. Start counting up the weekends that you have delayed tracks before, here in Michigan, mid September when the youth hunt and then early antler season starts. There aren't that many of them. When you start looking at it that way, you look at it, man. It's only late June. We got a long time. Okay, maybe when you're looking at it in its totality, but if you start peeling back and looking at the number of days that you can get in the field to train, all of a sudden it gets really, really small, really quick. So be thinking about that, and here you guys are. Talking about getting on real track soon. So,
yep.
Be thinking about that, guys.
In fact, I'll start getting some exotic calls here very soon.
Oh yeah. Then yeah. For those of you that track in areas that have those, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
What's Dave have to say here? And then we'll grab Mike's. But math question: one real track on a known dead deer, 100 to 150 yards, is equal to how many practice tracks? I don't know. I don't know how to quantify that. I guess it depends on the complexity of the practice tracks, Dave, the complexity of the real track. But what I don't know how to quantify the value of, it's a real deer.
I can tell you this.
Go ahead.
Tell you this. That 100 to 150 yard real track, your dog is not learning much.
Because it's short. But,
well, not because it's short. There's way more scent. That real track is a whole lot easier.
Well, and that's what I was going to say too. Is you get the full scent profile. So here's how I break that down: is you're getting a scent profile of a real deer, not that doesn't include you who laid the track, because we know that the track layer scent is part of a scent profile on a training track. It has to be. If it isn't, then man trailing is not a thing.
Until you factor in dissipation rates.
It is until you factor in dissipation rates, but it's still there to some degree.
How long you wait? That's the
Depending on how long you wait, but you have two hooves, 6 inches long, depending on the shoe you got or how you're laying the, you have a full scent profile. So I think there's benefits. So to me, that is part of the far more scent, right? But it's actual, true, full, assuming it hasn't been trailed or grid searched or anything like that. It's a true deer, dead deer, wounded deer scent profile.
It's still easier, way more scent.
That's my point is. I do think it's easier because you have 150 pounds of deer, not
a lot of dander,
inches of deer, and 300 pounds of man like me. So I think there's benefit, but I do think it's easier. So I don't know, Dave. Great teaser question. Some comments rolling in here. Let's go back up to.
Well, you take a dog that has only been put on known dead deer, and you take one that has been trained properly, and when it comes down to tough tracks, that one that's been trained is going to outperform.
Well, and that goes back to what we were just talking about, creating those opportunities for the dog to develop the problem solving skills.
Now, you put enough in front of that dog, it's going to start developing.
Oh, sure.
But the average tracker is not going to go on enough tracks for that to happen.
Yeah. Let's pull Mike's up again. Because on the challenges, I think the challenges taught me more than him. Well, and that's another reason to do them. One time I laid a mock down a drainage ditch, through a fence, over a road, and into an overgrown pasture. It was 40 degrees in the morning when I laid it. Came back at 4 in the afternoon to run it. Warmed up a lot. Little known to me, when we got to the pasture, there was a set of beehives. The bees were not active when I laid it. Okay, so yeah, you went by quiet bees and 40 degrees to active bees. So yeah. Well, again, this is the challenges and the distractions, and yes, that is another reason. Let's quote Al: "No time behind your dog is wasted." And the challenges are not only for the dog to develop; it's for you to learn your dog, and that is important.
Another thing, kind of back to that Dave's thing. How many times you get called behind, and maybe it doesn't happen a lot there, but I get called a lot behind people. My dog has found deer in the past. They find every deer that I shot and put them on, but they can't find this one. And then I get there and I feel like it was an easy trail. But to someone whose dog has only seen 100, 150 yard or 200, even 300 yard trail with minimal challenges, that was a difficult track. Where when I got there and I'm like, okay, this was a cakewalk. We finished it in 15 minutes, and they spent 2 hours with their dog because their dog didn't know how to work through the challenge.
Yeah. My perspective on training lines has changed a lot, and it is about the problem solving and the challenging. First of all, I love to see it. I love watching a dog solve a problem. I love
That's the only part I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every training line I do, I get excited over, seeing them overshoot and that head snap when they realize, hey, I missed it. I got to go back. It's over here.
Yeah. So here's one from Michael. I don't know if you saw that, Kenny. I meant to lay one at 24 hours and ended up running it at 41 hours, and we had multiple days of 99 plus degrees. The cur looked at me like there was nothing here, nothing there, and worked the 150 yards pretty good. But once we got to the open pasture portion of the track, he completely shut off and went to search mode. So what? I'd be interested. What are you comparing?
Open pasture is direct sunlight.
That's exactly where I was going, Kenny. I was going to get there. and the UV rays are terrible on for destroying scent, and probably a lot more wind to move it or dissipate it.
Less
So
moisture.
less, yeah, less moisture, probably because the sun's baking it. So yeah, um, in 41 hours, I mean that's not nothing. I mean that, you hear, my dog tracked a 60 hour. Yeah, probably did. Conditions were probably far different than what Michael's describing here. So what you're describing, I think, are relatively tough conditions. Although you guys get that all the time, those sound like relatively tough conditions to me up here. But I'm not terribly surprised at all that you say they got to the open field and it's like it evaporated. Yeah, there it is. Ben Bruce, terrain makes a lot of difference in pine straw flats. I have found really, I have found really the dogs, especially in the heat.
Yeah, so we train a lot, and Ben knows this. Ben's been here. We train a lot in dry, sandy pine straw because it's a challenge.
Oh, dry sandy pine straw sounds horrible. Yeah, so I guess Michael, he's only a year and a half old and ran a half season, so he's a young dog. Yep, yep. Yeah, that sand. We don't get a lot of sand where I'm at, but man, I hate it.
Well, something else that you guys may not think about that we do here is we really have to, and everyone should, but we really have to put a strong emphasis on the non-volatile odors in our training here
Yeah,
because of the high heat, because of the um, the different terrain, the water, the amount of water that we have to track in. You know, any volatile compound is going to be just go through significant changes, rapid changes, more so than it would in temperatures and environments that you track in.
yeah,
So we really have to focus on the non-volatile odors.
yeah, yeah. And I say we here. If you get on the west side of the state, maybe even the east side on the coastline, those guys over there track a lot of sandy areas. You start tracking Lake Michigan shoreline stuff like that. Those guys get a lot of sand, similar to what you guys probably get all over the place down there. But those west side guys here get a lot of that. So
Yeah, I mean, if you don't focus on the non-volatile odors in your training here, your dog's not going to be very successful.
yeah, yeah. Well, I tell you what, I think it was a fun conversation. Keep the comments coming, though, guys. I'm interested in your puppy training trials and tribulations, because I do go back and read these comments later as they continue to come in, and people watch the stream back later and stuff. Keep those comments coming. I do like to read those and keep up on it. I appreciate everybody helping keep me grounded and keep me sane. And again, I'm reinvigorated knowing what I got in this little Cadillac Ladner. I'm super stoked about it, and like I said, one of the things I find myself thinking about a whole bunch lately is stamina and endurance. I mean, I'm only doing 80 to 90 tracks a year. So it's not like what you guys are doing, but or a lot of other people are doing. But still, I'm noticing the difference, and I'm thinking a lot about stamina and endurance, especially when Brew, pulled a muscle or whatever she did twice last year, which is what prompted me to get Rizzo. And then we just went for a little exercise ride, have her jog along next to me in my side by side the other day, and she, she seemed to have pulled a muscle a little bit. So I'm trying to get her stamina up, get her weight down a little bit, and so she's ready to roll for September. But I find myself thinking about that a lot. I think that's going to be a huge, huge advantage with the Ladner. I don't think it's going to be something I have to concern myself with much at all.
And that's why I run Ladners.
Yep.
I mean, because we run. It depends on the year, but I mean, never less than 200 tracks. Most of the time, it's 220, 250.
Yeah, and I'll never touch that. That's
and if you don't have the right breed, that can handle that, and that's why I have so many dogs.
Well, you'd have to.
Ben has quite a few dogs. We all have, it's you have to in the conditions that we track and the number of tracks we go on. But I also, you've heard me say, I've got, obviously I have a Draught, I have a Bavarian, I have Ladners, I have the wire-haired Dachshunds. I've learned to, put together an arsenal to combat anything that I come across.
Yeah.
Now, not everyone has that ability, but not everyone needs that because they're, for one, they don't have the many different terrain challenges that we have. Environmental, I should say, more environmental.
That's exactly the word I was going to use. Environmental. We have a lot of environmental factors down there,
and most people don't go on the number of tracks either.
Yep. Yeah, I would have no need for more than really, barring some kind of injury or something, but just in terms of stamina and rotation, I really, for no more than I do, I wouldn't have a need for more than 2 dogs, and could frankly have been getting by with 1, and probably could, but I think 2's better. In case you do get 1 injured or something and needs a break. But down there, your environmental factors compounded by the number of tracks. Yeah, you got to have a little bit of an arsenal or a rotation or something.
Yep.
So cool. All right, buddy. I think we can wrap this one up. It's been good. I'm excited. I'm going to send, if you have that phone number we talked about, if you come across it, send it to me. If not, don't sweat it. I'm going to send them a note when I head upstairs. Yeah. For our perspective.
I'm going to look right now because I had already forgot.
Yeah,
and I have it right here. I'm going to send it to you.
Okay.
Well.
Yeah, because I'll reach out because I want to have that.
I thought, what in the world? I have it. I
know you'll find it.
I didn't say it.
Yeah. If that comes together, that'll be a good that'll be a good story to share. So, can I say, Jared McKinney? Can you start over? Yep, Jared, I sure can. All you have to do is go back to the beginning and push play.
Jared needs some help. He needs to listen, and get a Ladner.
Does he? Well, I will tell you, I got, despite my little pouty pants meltdown yesterday, there's a whole bunch I like that I see. He's laugh out loud. Jared says, "Yeah, a whole bunch I like that I see, man, and it will come together. I have zero doubts about it." So, Joe was supposed to bring me one. Oh, yeah. Well, make the trip, buddy. It's a nice drive. And we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I'll even make sure it's delivered to him.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Well, guys, I think that's good for the day. Keep the questions coming. Jared, go back and watch it again. Chime in. I want to read your comments and your supportive wisdom based on our conversations throughout the
That's
stream.
a strong word for Jared.
Wisdom?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't say that, Jared. That was Kenny. That was Kenny that said that. Yeah.
You laugh, so.
Don't pick on Jared at all. Yeah. All right. Well, guys, that's it. I'm going to cut it off for real this time. I appreciate everybody hanging in. I appreciate the comments. Keep them coming. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. More the good, less the bad, guys. We'll talk to you soon.